Lights, camera, action. Today on Conversations with Charlie, we have the distinct pleasure to have with us today writer, director, and editor, Barry Brown. Welcome,
Nice
Barry.
to be here, Charlie. Nice to see you.
Yes, yes. And I think we can dig right in to what you've been up to. I want to start with just a question about it, of course, because I just recently screened your current film that's out it's in release, Son of the South. But you've been an editor for as long as I've known you, although you started as a director with the Ward Home as a documentary director, and then sort of made a career out of being an editor, dipping
Yeah,
in and out of directing. But
yeah.
but um, so what brought about this moment just now that got you to decide to make Son of the South? And tell me a little bit of the story of it. Clearly, you're a native and had a history of, I guess, being raised in Montgomery, where the story takes place.
Yeah, my family's still there. My mother's 95, you know.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it's a film I've wanted to do for a long, long time. And not an easy film to get made. Wrote the script over 10 years ago, and it was a matter of just trying to, trying over all these years to get other people in that would really back it, and it really came down to it probably came down to the Trump years where people thought we really need a movie like this, and you know, so finally it got traction, and we got it. We raised enough money to get it made.
And beautifully and elegantly done. I literally just screened it this week, and I was absolutely blown away by the beautiful cinematography, and
Yeah, gorgeous.
and it's
John
just
Rosario did a great job. A
delicious.
great young cinematographer.
What a talent! What a talent!
Yeah,
Um,
a real talent.
okay, so uh, the story. I mean, of course, the voting rights era is something that I'm familiar with. I've seen. There have been other films that have been done about about voting rights, documentary and feature both, with Mississippi Burning and whatnot. But this is a very specific bio story of a man who is, I believe, is still alive today, Bob Zellner.
Yeah, Bob is still, yeah. Bob
Right.
lives down in Alabama.
Right. So this is just a spectacular story to capture. Um, Tell me about how it was that you came to connect. Obviously, there was a book that the screenplay is based on, but did you get to know Bob?
Well, I knew Bob a long, long time before he wrote the book. A
Oh,
long, long time.
okay. Tell me.
And we met in the '80s in New York, through his girlfriend at the time, the cinematographer Judy Irola.
Oh,
And we're both from Alabama, and our politics are similar, and our sense of humor are similar, and back in those days, he would tell me these one story after the other about being in SNCC and the civil rights movement, and they were just amazing stories, amazing stories. Um, and so, matter of fact, I don't know if Bob will remember this, but we were down in Bruton, Alabama, and he showed me Murder Creek that runs right through Bruton, and he pointed across the creek, and he said, "That's East Bruton. That's where I'm from." I said, "So you're from the wrong side of Murder Creek," you know,
wow.
and I don't think he remembers that, but yeah. I think that's where he got the name for the book. So, and so when I was writing the script, he was working on his book, and most of what's in the script really isn't so much from my reading of the book, but from the stories that Bob told me. I mean, there was probably things I got from reading the book as well, but, a little of both.
And then you wrote, now you're saying you wrote, I mean, this is now 10 years ago that you wrote
A
this
little
script.
over, yeah. I was writing the script probably in around 2008, 2009.
Right. So around this time, you're doing all these films and cutting all these films for Spike,
Mhm.
and finding time to fit that into your life.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And so tell me a little bit about the production of this film. There were a lot of beautiful period. It's a period story, so you have old cars, and I'm pretty close with your producer Stan Erdreich. In fact,
Yeah.
I had a chat
Well,
with him.
Stan, I mean, really, Stan, without Stan, I don't think this film would be made, quite frankly. He raised the early money for this movie right out of Alabama. He's from Birmingham,
Yeah.
what we used to call Birmingham, when I was in high school.
Oh, really? Okay. Tell me how did it get that name? Because of the
Birmingham?
yeah, because
Yeah.
of what took place. Yeah, yeah.
There was bombs that went off
If there
there.
was bombs that went
You
off.
know,
Yeah.
and some people almost refer to it naturally as Birmingham, just the accent. But yeah, we used to call it Birmingham. And Stan was just great. And it's really wonderful that the first money came from Alabama, because so much of the film is a Southern film. I'm from Alabama. Bob's from Alabama. Um, Many of the supporting cast are from Alabama. A lot of the local crew, was from Alabama. Eloise Stammerjohn is from Montgomery, who she did the production design. And Eloise was amazing. She's so good. And she doesn't live in Alabama. She works all over the world now because she's such a great production designer. And Eloise just took the little bit of money we had to make this movie with and just stretched every dollar to get things to work. And there was never once I showed up on a set that wasn't ready to go. I don't think she slept. I don't think she slept.
Unbelievable.
I don't know. I do not know how she did it. And Dane, who was her art director, also first-rate art director, and he goes off and works wherever Eloise works, but he lives right in Montgomery. So there was so much about this movie that is so Alabama based. The story takes place in Alabama. We shot it in Alabama. We shot it in a lot of the places where the original events actually happened. The Freedom Riders riot. We shot exactly where that Greyhound bus came in, and where they got off the bus, and where they got beaten. We were at Reverend Ralph Abernathy's church in Montgomery, to shoot the scenes that actually took place in that church with Bob and Rosa Parks and Dr. Abernathy. And where Rosa Parks says to Bob, something really bad is going to happen to you right in front of you someday, and you're going to have to choose. Because not choosing is a choice. You're going to have to choose a side. And we shot it in the very doorway that the real Rosa Parks stopped the real Bob Zellner to deliver this message. So it was very satisfying to be there, to have real accents, real Southern accents. I mean, Lucas Till, he's from Georgia, and Lucy Hale is from Memphis, Tennessee. So and it goes on and on. All the people that were, homegrown, so to speak. That just were so talented.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And so going back to your life a little bit, in Alabama, your dad, I guess, was in the Air Force,
Right.
and your mom is from Alabama
Her
originally.
family's from Alabama, yeah. And my grandfather's from Andalusia, and my grandmother's from Russellville, which is a little bit near Birmingham. you know.
Right. And then when your family was when you were born in the UK, that was not a long stint, right? You were there like it would be for the military. You were there
Yeah,
for a short period
exactly.
of
And,
time.
and we've lived other places. I mean, we also lived in Mississippi, for instance, and we lived in the panhandle of Florida where three of my siblings were born, you know. And some people say Florida is not really a southern state, you
Yeah,
know, but
yes, it is.
the panhandle is very southern. Make no bones about it. You
Yes,
know, as a matter of fact, Alabama should go all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. You know,
right,
that should be part of Alabama. That really should be.
exactly.
I think it's a crime that it is. I really do. I think we should, you know, just take it, quite frankly.
Extract it, yeah,
Just
and
yeah.
yeah, because you hit Mobile, and then you got to sort of bang a left, and you're all of a sudden you're
And you got this little strip, you know,
it's
that
crazy.
goes down to Orange Beach and now
There you go, there you go. So, very ambitious film to make. The budget challenges must have been significant, unless
significant.
yeah.
You know,
Tell me a little bit about like some of what you had to do to get through that.
well, you know, like the riot scene. I wanted a real riot, you know. I mean, there has been some criticism of me for doing this riot in this movie, like it's unnecessary. I think it's very necessary. I think it's very necessary to really feel what these people really went through, and not to whitewash it, and not to say let's not you know, let's not look at how violent this time was and what these people had to face, and how they not only faced it. We have a scene where John Lewis is in the hospital and Bob Zellner goes to visit him in the hospital, meets him for the very first time in the hospital. That is all true. That really did happen, you know. And Bob, who has witnessed this riot almost from the outside, even though he's run in to grab people and pull them out, you know, he was not somebody who was either beaten or beating anybody. So in a way, he could just go in and out of that riot without anybody touching him, because they just thought, you know, the 6 foot tall, blue-eyed blonde Southerner is one of us. I think the rioters must have just thought that way. So he could do anything. And so Bob goes to the hospital and he says, well, your freedom rides is over. And John Lewis says, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? We're getting on that bus tomorrow. And Bob just can't believe it, because he's seen what happens to people.
Right.
He's seen it firsthand. He knows how vicious that mob was, and how, and he says to John Lewis, he says, you know, when Georgia gets criticized for being backwards, in Georgia they say, thank God for Alabama. And in Alabama, we say, thank God for Mississippi. And that's where they're going. They're going to Mississippi. So basically, Bob is telling John Lewis, who he assumes is not from anywhere around there, that Mississippi, as bad as Alabama was, Mississippi is going to be worse, right? Now, John Lewis is from Troy, Alabama, a town I knew very well in high school. It was 50 miles south of Montgomery. And I would go down to Troy a lot, you know? So, you know, I knew Troy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's why, you know, so my point about the budget was I really wanted to do a real riot, and an upsetting riot, and one that had a lot of details in it. Because I was also looking at other movies from the past that, you know, like the 10 best riots of all time in movies. And quite frankly, one of the only ones that I thought was any good was the one from Do the Right Thing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a really good riot.
Oh yeah.
And so, but I said, I'm going to, you know, I'm not going to fail at doing this. And we had basically a day and a half to shoot that riot. That was it.
Wow.
Because we really had only 2 days in that location because of budget restraints. So we had to have a day and a half to shoot the riot, you know, from outside and inside the DER's office looking down. And then we had to have the scene in which Bob shows up days later and 2 days later to when the bus is going to leave for Jackson, Mississippi. And so we had to shoot that scene too, you know, and so, you know, it was, but what we did was we really choreographed it and we laid it out to know exactly what we were doing going in there. And it had to go like this. And it was a dance, you know, and as vicious as it looks, you know, we were still staying safe, and we were getting everything I wanted. I look at it and I still don't really know how we did it. Although there's one person who's seen the film who saw that I had restraints. I don't know how he did, but it was the French director Bertrand Tavernier. You know, and Bertrand saw the film. You know, when he liked it, and he said the thing about the riot scene. He said, "Very impressive. I knew you shot that fast."
Wow.
But
awesome.
so, but he's the only one who's ever looked at and could analyze what we did.
Oh yeah.
So
let's talk a little bit about one other aspect that I actually appreciated because I'm, you know, a huge music fan as well, and I really enjoyed the music that you used. Talk a little bit about how you put that together, how you put together the track, composed, and did what you did for music for the film. I thought it was great.
Well, you know, from the get-go, I did not want an orchestra for this score. You know, I really wanted a country band. And there was people who I wanted to do the score originally. People who were in the business, people who were like in the country western side of music. And none of that quite worked out. And I even wanted to record the music down in Muscle Shoals at that studio down there.
Sure.
So I was sort of stuck here. I mean, I had the sound in my mind, but nobody who we could really afford to hire,
right.
Really, or this didn't work out for one other reason or another. But then my friend in LA, Kevin Dowling, said to me one day, "I think I got the guy for you." And he said, he can do anything. And this guy name was Stephen Arguilla. And, you know, and I looked at Stephen's work and yeah, it was pretty broad in terms of his ability to deliver, you know, but he'd never done anything like this. Nothing like it. But we met and, you know, I just thought, I just have to trust he can do it. As a matter of fact, that's not completely true. I didn't completely trust he could do it. There was one section of the film that I said, "Can you write a piece for this?" You know, and just record it on a synthesizer or whatever, however you create something rough. And he did it. He did it really fast. I think within 48 hours. You know, it wasn't a long piece. It was a minute or so, and it was perfect. Man, it was just right. And so I thought, okay, this guy can do this. You know, I think the producers were like, "But wait a second, he hasn't done a score like this." I said, "I'm sorry, but you know, if somebody can do this and deliver it so fast, you know, we got to trust him." And then Stephen he really got what I wanted. I wanted a band. I wanted a country band.
Right on.
You know, to and he brought in great musicians. And I basically created his own little country band, and in a little studio in LA, we recorded that score, and it was gorgeous. And the thing about it, what was really amazing was, he wrote out the score like anybody does, like any of these composers do. But I kind of didn't expect that, you know. And the musicians he had were so good, and even though they could play that music, they could read music too, and so it was kind of like amazing, and it went very fast and very smoothly, and I just think very special, really
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
And that score is coming out, being released by Lakeshore Records.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, wonderful. Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Well, let's wind the clock way back. Speaking of music, and transition back to school days. Um, School days predates. I mean, I started to get to know Spike around the time that he did Clockers and Girl Six and all that.
Okay, right.
School days goes way back, and as a film student and graduating in 1984, it was like Spike was sort of the launch of hope, for with She's Gotta Have It and what took place, right? And
Uh-huh.
and you were there from the beginning, and you have been there throughout. Um, Talk about. There's one. I'm going to bounce around here a little bit because there are a few things that I'm blurry about going back to that time, and I don't know if I have the right fact or not, but there's somewhere there's a statement that you worked at Films Incorporated. You were like a part of Films, either Films Incorporated or First Run Features. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. I was one of the founders of First Run Features,
One of the,
and I was the first president.
okay, so this is fantastic because that company, correct me if I'm wrong, used to deliver prints to film societies at universities. Am I right, or was that Films Inc?
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're a distribution company, and that's how you distributed films. Then it was the early '80s.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah. You
Right,
had to get
I
prints. You had
started
the
off.
16mm prints and send them out.
I started off in when I was in school as a film student. I was also a carbon arc 35mm projectionist. I used to project in an old theater at my university, and then later for work at the Somerville Theater, which was a calendar repertory theater. And I used to see some stuff coming from Films Inc., First Run Features. But you were at First Run. This is back. When is that in relation to when you made Word Home?
Well, I made the word home in the late '70s.
Right. Okay.
And then the film took off when we finished it, at the end of '79, and there wasn't really distribution for independent American films. There really wasn't at that moment in time. Some people were distributing their own. Some things got picked up, like Harlan County, but most films. I mean, there was very few films that were being made by independent filmmakers. There were so few of us. But you'd finish a film, and there wasn't just a belief that these films could do anything theatrically. And my film, The Word Home, was one of those rare movies that just took off and had a theatrical life. And so, along with a group of other filmmakers, we founded First Run Features. And we were young and inexperienced, and we didn't do the booking. We had Fran, this old great booker, doing our booking.
Wonderful.
But I think it came down to one day somebody said, "Listen, we really got to get serious here. I mean, one of us has got be the president, you know. Somebody stepped forward, and I think everybody else stepped back, you know. I'll be like,
What a great story. I didn't know this part of your life, Barry. So for me, this is
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. And around that time, you know, I met this young, you know, film student, Spike Lee. He was going to NYU, and you know, I offered him a job to come in and work part-time, you know, to get those prints ready. Those prints that you got. Spike was getting those prints ready to send to people like you.
That's fantastic. So
Yeah.
Spike Lee was working for you while he was at school at First Run Features.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Wow, what a story. And how long did you end up staying as president?
I was there for 3 years.
Okay.
And then I was just like, what am I doing?
Okay.
What am I doing?
Okay.
You know, I got nominated for an Oscar, and I haven't done anything for 3 years because I'm running this company. What am I doing? Am I crazy? You know, and you know, and I made them a deal. I made my partners a deal. I said, I will give you my stock in First Run Features on one condition. Nobody calls me about stuff in First Run Features again, ever, for anything. Anything. I'm out.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was just like, I wasn't meant to be a businessman. I'm not even a good businessman, you know. And you know, I was a filmmaker, and I'm not making movies. So
Fantastic.
that's what I did.
A story that I did not know. There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I'm trying to rack my brain, but I when I was up in Cambridge in the mid '80s, there was a documentary filmmaker who I believe his films were all distributed by First Run. It's a guy called Ross McElwee.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, great documentary. But in any case, fantastic. So then from there, now this young filmmaker that you have breaking down prints becomes the boss, and you go to work for
My
him.
boss, yeah. Well,
Much, right?
really what it came down to, you know, Spike was doing stuff at school, and I was doing some other things too. I did a half-hour film. And the first film I really edited was High Wire, which I co-produced and edited with Sandy Sissel. And about
Sissel, wow, okay.
yeah, about Philippe Petit, about a walk that Philippe Petit did in New York City. A really very, very charming half-hour film, really charming.
Is that the one where he goes between the towers? Is that no, not that?
No. It was one across to St. John the Divine on the Upper West Side.
Wonderful.
And so, you know, and there's some of Spike's voice in that film, some of his laughter and some of his voice, because you know sometimes you know people were looking, you know, like what you know Philippe Petit is putting up this high wire, you know, and saying things, and so the camera was too far away for you to hear it, so Spike voiced some of those voices, you know, and I would help him out on anything he asked me to do, and he asked me to do the set up the tracks for the mix for She's Gotta Have It. But I also went over to his house a lot, you know, just to give my 2 cents on the cut for She's Gotta Have It. And then he got stuck on one scene. It just wasn't working for him. And he said, you know, can you try something? Can you recut this? You know, and so I recut the one scene for him in film.
And so you cut that one scene in She's Gotta Have It. Got it.
No. And then he asked me to do School Days.
Right. So let's talk about, because that was a big jump. I mean, School Days now, I think Columbia Pictures, I mean, not just for you, but for
both of us.
Yeah,
both of us, a big jump.
It was a launch, yeah. So he had to do what not everybody is able to pull off, which was to stand behind the man he wanted. So he stood behind you, and you end up cutting School Days.
You know, the thing about it is I don't think anybody realized I wasn't an editor. I don't think anybody at the studios realized, oh, wait a second, he's your buddy. you just hired your buddy to edit this, this whatever it was,
Ambitious
$3 or $4 million.
ambitious
Yeah,
film.
you
I
know,
mean,
and
let's get clear about what it was. An ambitious, a musical.
a musical, yeah. One of the things that really drew Spike and I together when we were really young was our love for Broadway musicals. We both love them. And I remember when I went into, I asked somebody because I'd worked with 16 millimeter, but I never worked with 35 at that moment. And School Days was going to get shot in 35, so I asked somebody, do you know anybody who has working in a 35 millimeter editing room right now? And so they said, yeah, and they set me up, and I went up to a place that was up in the Brill building.
Yep.
Right, you've been in many times yourself.
Know it well.
And so one of the editing rooms there, and this first assistant was showing me through the ropes, and I would say things like, "Oh, look at that!" So in 35 millimeter sound, the wind of that is completely opposite. You got to flip it like that to go through the head, and what are the white boxes, and you use red Sharpie for, and she would say sound, and the black Sharpie for picture, okay, and how do you get this all organized?
And grease pencil.
Right? And finally she said, you know what? I misunderstood. Somebody told me that you were the editor of the film. And I said, yep, I am. And she was like, oh, brother, this movie is in trouble. This movie is, if you're the editor, this movie is definitely in trouble. And I remember I remember looking, at their organization of these boxes and thinking, I don't know, I don't like what they do here and here and here. And so my editing rooms always had a slightly different kind of organization to the boxes. And sometimes people would come into my editing room and say, oh, look at that. Who taught you how to do that? And I said, I made it up myself because I like it better. So,
And it worked.
Even the ward home, there was things that we were so green at. I mean, I hadn't gone to film school. My partner hadn't gone to film school. We were green. And we didn't even know that you were supposed to put in coding, this little code for the sound in the film.
Yeah, that
always
called
could find a way to sync it back up.
edge
right?
coding from the punch on the track and the work picture.
Yeah, right.
Head and tail, you used to get edge coding, and those numbers matched up throughout the process.
Yeah, but we didn't know. I didn't know. So when we got to New York to set up the mix, right? The sound editor said, so let's talk about your system and your organization and your codes. And we're like, you're losing me. I don't know what a code is. What do you code for what? And they began to realize pretty soon, oh my Lord, these idiots did not code anything. Nothing's coded, right? Nothing was coded. Nothing was coded. And so they were like, oh, but that was it. You stumble through and you learn things. You learn it.
Oh my God, did you ever?
For me, had been from the very beginning on the job training, except for one thing. There was nobody there to train me. Nobody around to train me. I had to figure this stuff out. And
you were working with cutting mounds and mounds of film and trimming with magnetic track.
Magnetic track.
Mm-hmm. And then multiple tracks laid out to design the sound with slug in between, because I used to cut on a Steenbeck. I started in film myself. And so but I actually studied it at school. You did this without film school.
Yeah. I did it without studying, just figuring it all out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then through that process, I'm assuming, although you had to be self-taught, on every film there's an assistant editor, someone who syncs dailies. So you did have a little bit of a crew, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There was a crew, you know, and I don't think though that my first assistant editor on School Days was any more. I don't think she was any more experienced than me.
Oh my God.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But we figured this stuff out, you know. We
Fantastic.
figured it out, and and got everything in sync, and you
Yeah.
know.
And had to lay out all the tracks on a flatbed one at a time and set up
Yeah, and it was a steam deck for me too. I like steam decks.
yeah, I worked on a steam deck, and then you had to do those cue sheets. I remember I was cleaning out my attic, I don't know how many years ago, and I found my old Do Art Film Lab cue sheets from mixes, and you used
Ah,
to, you know, write down each
oh, yeah,
each
yeah,
of the 24
yeah,
tracks and where what
yeah.
footage marker they stopped on, and you sat with the mixer and they set up the faders for them all, and
Yeah.
the you had to organize.
Around that time, I took a short job um, at CBS, a show. I can't even remember the name of the show. It was a magazine show, and it was not for very long. And there was a guy there, an assistant editor. His name was Robin. I remember Robin's last name, but he was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. And one day, Robin says to me, "Have you ever thought about your style as an editor?" And I said, "Yeah, you mean like jump cuts and this, that, that?" He goes, "No, He said, people are going to sit behind you and you got to develop a style so that just watching you, they're impressed." And I thought, Robin is right. Robin's right. And I'm telling you, from that point on, I worked on my style. And if you had walked in, because I was worked on an 8 plate, 2 pictures, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's the way to go.
And if you walked in and you watched me on the Steenbeck, and they played Steenbeck, I was impressive.
Yeah,
So many people were just impressed with me just because I worked on my style. I mean, I could do, I throw, a piece of film around my neck. Da, 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 da. It was just I had this thing going all the time.
yeah. You have to
Like a
be, you
pizza
have to be
maker or
fluid.
something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, I might not be any good at all as an editor, but I really look good.
I
You know?
love it. I
Yeah. So
love it.
thanks to Robin, I had style. On Avids, you just don't have that ability to show off your dexterity, your physical. You can't impress the same way.
No, right?
Mm-mm.
I'm trying to think of the cutoff for you. That would have been by the time you got to what, like maybe Malcolm X or Crooklyn. When did that
No, no, no.
come in?
We
Or
were even later than that. I
you
mean,
got
Spike and I went kicking and screaming into that digital age, kicking and screaming.
you cut on film.
Yeah, we just didn't want to do anything else. I think maybe I know that the last film that we really cut in film was Summer of Sam.
Okay.
Okay. And the last film that we cut that had any film in it was the very end of 25th Hour,
Got it.
that black and white sequence.
Got it.
It's not really black and white, but
Well, I don't think that was the last, because I worked with you guys on Inside Man. That was shot in film, bro.
we shot in film, but we edited digitally.
Oh no, you edited digitally. Oh, you're saying prior to that. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was still editing in film,
You were
and
still cutting in film.
yeah, and as far as we felt, both of us, that we were going to go to our graves cutting in film,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that was just not possible at a certain point. Just not
Of
possible.
course. Of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So a lot of films with Spike Lee, a lot of stories.
Mhm.
Tell me, as develop in the years of working with him, what is your collaborative style, and how do you guys work together? What is your what is your flow for cutting for Spike, and how engaged does he get in during the process once they've wrapped production? Is he in every day? How does it work? What's
No, he's not. He no, no. Really comes down to we see all dailies together. Even in documentaries, we see all the dailies together, and we talk about what to do and how to use it, and what he likes and what he doesn't like, and then he allows me to get in and cut, so he can come back when it's put together, in a tight way, because I don't assemble, I cut. I just cut from the get-go.
Right.
Quite frankly, it also comes from not having ever worked for anybody else. I didn't even know what an assembly was. I just didn't know. I think, you get this footage, you cut it.
Cut the scenes.
You cut scenes. You cut it together. And it just didn't. For neither one of us didn't make any sense to do anything else, and so neither one of us have ever done anything else. So, I cut it, and then he comes in, and we start reworking it, reshaping it from what I've cut.
Yeah, and in the case of the types of stuff you've done with Spike, it's included pretty much everything, right? Because you've done documentaries, you've done feature films, done some episodic. Did you do any of the commercials? You must have done music videos as well.
Early on, I did some of the Nike commercials. Yeah, and some nice Nike commercials. Some that people really remember. With Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And we've done music videos.
Yeah.
Like Michael Jackson, and we've done we've done all sorts of things.
Right. But on the documentary side, I would think that the real building block, because the docs are created in a cutting room without, there's a shape to it, but it's almost like you're the captain when you're editing a doc, right?
Well, you find it. They say that you find the documentary in the editing room.
The editing room, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've done quite a few of the levee when the levee broke.
I didn't actually do it when the levee broke.
But you did Bad 25.
I did Bad 25. I did, and we're working on something else right now. So, and yeah, there was probably some other docs along the way.
Sure. And in the feature side, one of the things that Spike became known for at the time that Girl 6 and Clockers and that whole, and then He Got Game and Summer of Sam, that whole stretch of time, he was working with cinematographers that were doing some very experimental cross-processing and skip bleach work. So you were dealing with a lot of variables in the workflow. Because it was I remember. I was at the lab at the time. He was a wild man. Yeah,
he was a wild man. Huh?
Yeah, he was because but
they were trying something. They wanted to try stuff.
That's what I'm saying. It was beautiful. For me, the adventure. I had Ellen on the show. We talked about it, but the adventure was to work with cinematographers like Malik Saeed and of course Maddie Levitsik and Ellen Kuras, and people that were willing to kind of push the edge. And you were on the receiving end of this stuff coming in, and talk a little bit about the process and working with the creative ideas behind that, and kind of collaborating as a team with all of that. That must have been an exciting time.
Well, yeah, I think so much of that, especially when you come down to the look of a movie, it wasn't so much, that was really between Spike and the DPs.
Yeah,
DPs,
absolutely.
And so much of it, I took a back seat because that's a whole other thing. Sometimes it's a matter of when you're working like that, some footage might come in very early on, almost as dailies, and you had to flag certain things to say, listen, I think this is not the look you're going for, you know. This is, you know, and then let Spike and the DP look at it and then take it back to Technicolor, right?
Exactly.
And you know, sit down with somebody and rework it so that you're trying to, you're not going to really get it
Yeah.
until you're really at the finish and you're color correcting, but at least you want to be in the ballpark, you know. So I mean, I don't think beyond that I really had much of a role in that stuff, you know, except for flagging certain things.
Right, because you were seeing the stuff come in and having to match it up
Yeah,
and communicating back to them, and you're
yeah,
cutting during production, obviously. So, yeah,
yeah.
so you're
Yeah.
you're you're going all the way through. On the schedules that you worked on, were you able to put in a full 26 plus weeks to do each of these, or did it have to go faster on all these films?
I mean, we always had enough time. We always did, except for BlacKkKlansman. BlacKkKlansman was the fastest of all of the films.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, uh, you know, I showed Spike my cut of the film on January 8th. And it's amazing. And in this room that I'm in right now. And what was amazing about that whole from January 8th on, because it went to it was at Cannes, you know, in May. So, you know, February, March, April, May, 4 months later, we were in Cannes.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And so, and Spike had Terrence Blanchard come in and sit to watch the very first time he saw the whole film, which is unheard of. I've never seen Spike do that before. You know, he's always wanted, and for good reason, just to see the film by himself the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why did he have a sort of sense, a second sense that we were already in a place, but I don't know how, because he hadn't really seen the cut. Right. But right from the jump, you know, Spike was like excited about the film and where the film was at, even on January 8th. You know, and he wanted Terrence to start working on the score.
Yeah.
And we showed, you know, usually what you have is 10 solid weeks of a director's cut.
Director's cut, yeah.
So it's 10 solid weeks after January 8th, right? Mm-hmm. Which really takes you to late March, right? I mean, but we had to show Ken something, I think, by March 12th, which means we really had to go in and do a pretty good mix, you know, and not a real mix, but, you know, a good scratch mix and some other things before March 12th, which meant that we really had to show the studio the film by the end of February. So, I mean, what is it for Spike in terms of his director's cut? Was it week 6? Was it week 7 of his director's cut?
No time.
Something like that. But Spike was like, let's go, let's do it, you know? And that's what we did, you know?
Outrageous.
And I think we locked the film. We locked the film, I think, even before the 10th week of the director's cut.
Unbelievable.
I'm sure we did. I'm sure we locked it. We must have locked the film around week 9 of the director's cut.
And all that fast work yields a shower of nominations and a win.
Amazing. I mean, it all just came together. It came together nice. It came together well, you know. But it was fast. It was fast, and it wasn't like the studio wasn't breathing down our neck. I think Spike felt from the get-go, we can do this and we will do it. And when he saw the film on January 8th, he really saw, yeah, the film's already in that kind of shape that we can make this schedule and we can make Cannes. you know? And so yeah, we did. But otherwise, all the other films, you know, we had a normal schedule, you know,
Absolutely.
and you know, did the films as we felt that we had the time to do them as we wanted.
Right, which is beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Spike's style, there are moments where the character and the camera are dollied together. And explain to me
Oh
how
yeah.
he does this. This is just spectacular. Talk a little bit about some of that, because he uses that as a tool quite frequently, right?
Well, yeah. I mean that floating shot. Yeah.
Double the
Um, yeah. I mean, it feels like you're floating.
right.
You know, and in Crooklyn, they're upside. It's a floating shop, but they're upside down. You know, at one point, you know, the drug addicts, and you know, other times, you know, like in Inside Man, where Denzel just goes flying. You know, I mean, it's basically the same shot, just very fast. You know, otherwise, you know, it's this otherworldly, you know, float. Um, yeah, you know, it's
Yeah, a great sort of integrated technique. It's so beautiful
Mhm.
to
I
watch.
agree.
So I noticed a film that I hadn't seen that you had I think also directed, the Tommy film, the
Oh
Who.
yeah, the Who's Tommy.
Can you tell me about that? I'm sorry. I mean, I want to watch it. I'm going to see it,
Amazing
but
movie.
talk to me about that film. How did that come about? It's another directorial project for you.
Yeah, it was a film, a documentary about the Who's Tommy, made for Harvey Weinstein. Um, his wife at the time was one of the producers, along with her sister.
Mhm.
And you know, somebody got an idea, I don't know who it was, to come to me and ask me if I would direct it, you know, not edit it.
Right. No, no, you
But
were the director. That's why I'm
and
just asking how that all came about. And
you know, the film, the Tommy was, it had been 25 years since the album got recorded, and it was now coming to Broadway. So we could shoot the Broadway show,
okay.
and then we had all other footage of the film that was shot in the 70s, and other stuff from around the time that they recorded the album, and you know, performed it on stage.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's, you know, it came out terrific. The Who's Tommy. Um, I haven't seen it in many years. I don't even know if you can see it anymore. I have
I
no
know,
idea.
it's not incredible how that happens too.
Mm, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
it was, yeah, this was something that you got a chance to direct. And and an interesting story behind it, clearly. Yeah, the anniversary.
yeah, yeah. You know, and you know, getting to work with Pete Townsend on it was great, and you know, um, you know, it was it's too bad that nobody can really see it, because you know, it's a really good hour of you know, something sort of a very entertaining doc, you know.
Well, when the Metrograph reopens, we'll put in a bid for
You're
that.
going to try and find it.
I'll go find it. That'll be me. That'll be my
You
job.
think that you think Miramax still has it?
I would think it would have gone into the hands of the folks at Disney, and
Well,
then
Miramax, I guess. I mean, why? Maybe. I mean, is
worldwide.
is Miramax non-existent anymore?
I believe it exists as an entity. It went from the Weinstein brothers to Disney,
Yeah.
and then I don't know what happened. I kind of lost track after that.
Huh.
But but
Well,
they
I
have,
tell you, I mean, Harvey was um, so gentle on that project because his wife was producing it. He
interesting.
was a lamb. It was amazing. You
Wow.
know? Yeah. Yeah.
That's a story unto itself.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, because I worked with him 3 times,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
and and I'd seen him up close, and and quite frankly, he was never harsh to me. But man, I saw him harsh with so many people, embarrassingly harsh. You know,
Right. 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 You saw some moments that were
and we all have, I think, we
yeah,
all
we
have.
all have that were hard to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there's a story that I also was unaware of. So I always like to bring up other stories that I was unaware of. For I think it's She's Gotta Have It and the MPAA and your involvement. And I
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean, obviously, I was, a Spike Lee fan from the moment I saw the trailer of that film. So, but I didn't I didn't know
The Tube Socks trailer. That's
the
one.
Tube Socks trailer. Yes,
Yeah, it was
yes,
like
yeah,
Spun Out on 14th Street. Great trailer.
fantastic.
Brilliant
I
trailer.
remember seeing that and at the movie theater in Harvard Square when I was still living up in Boston. I was like, "Who is this fucking
Who is the guy?
who is this guy?" And I'm like, little did I know that this would be the year's forth of my life, and well, much more so of yours. So, um, uh, but tell me what happened. I mean, I know that there was an MPAA rating issue, as there are on all films that come out, right? RX, NC-17, all kinds of craziness, and what's okay and what's not. But what was can you tell me the story of what happened and what you had to do to remedy it?
Well, it was the scene that I cut. The one scene I cut, and She's Gotta Have It, which was a sex scene between Greer and Nola. Greer is that model.
And no,
And it was this shot that looked right down onto a bed, right? Her bed. And Spike had shot it in a way that he thought all the edits will happen in camera, right? And he didn't like it. And so he asked me, we cut it. And so I came up with a way to cut it, to make kind of like 2 moments in this sex scene. And one where like they're I mean, basically it's black and white and so high contrast. They are almost silhouettes on this white bed. They really are. Because he really pushed that. He really pushed the contrast. And so you really hardly even see their nakedness because they are silhouettes, right? And the first part of the scene, they just go one side of the bed, one back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, and then they come apart, and then they come back together. And I did this thing where they went around in a clock, you know. I think Spike had this idea in mind that this would be all mixed up, and I just thought, no, let's just do it like this, and he liked it, and that's the way that where we ended up. And then they sent it to get rated, and that's the scene that kept getting bumped back, and they said, no, this scene is too
revealing.
yeah. And I don't know what they were talking about, because really these were two silhouette bodies, but I just think that they were really uncomfortable with this young Black couple having sex on camera. I think that's really what they were uncomfortable with. And so, we kept recutting the scene, sending it out, and they kept coming back with an X rating, and I think we needed an NC-17.
Right.
And so finally we came down to it and said, okay, tell us exactly these moments that are bothering you, because I mean, they're saying all this stuff and we don't see what they have a problem, what problems they're having. The parts of their body that are being revealed. We just don't see it, right? Just show us. This is the start mark. From this point on, by your footage count, just tell us which shots here are a problem. So they did that, and so we replaced the shots with other moments, thinking, well, listen, this has got to be okay. And so the weeks go by. Actually, I think it's more than a month or so go by, and the film gets released. I had just become a father 2 weeks before the film came out, and we had gone off to Pennsylvania for those first 2 weeks and came back to New York on the day that She's Gotta Have It opens. And it's before cell phones. It's 1986.
I know.
And I call Spike up and say, "Hey, yeah, I'm back in town." He goes, "Oh, thank God. You got to get up. You got to get up to the theater and cut half of that scene out." Because that's the deal we've made with the MPAA, is that they have not given us an NC-17. And on the poster, it says NC-17. But they hadn't also responded to our last cut. And so they finally the deal was, you just cut out half of that scene, right? Whatever half of it is, cut it out. They don't say it's which. And so he said, "You got to go up there and do it." So I thought, okay, I think I know which part to cut, And Ola Tunji had done this drum beat to the scene, and so I go up there. The film is already played two screenings, and it's in the middle of the third screening. So, the projectionist has been told, about me coming up.
You got to go in the booth. You got to go in the booth.
Yeah, I'm in the booth, and that reel comes off. That scene is in, and I put it up onto,
the winders.
Yeah, 2 of them, and it's 35, so it's easy to see. And there's a little light plate there, and I go through and I find this where I want to cut halfway through that scene, cut it, go to the end, cut it, put that on the reel, put that reel in my coat, and then tape that back together,
That it's spliced back together. You had to splice what you.
I had to splice it, yeah, and double side so it won't come apart in the projector, right?
Of course.
And
20-minute reels, man.
yeah, and so I
remember.
So I remember the projectionists were like, "What are you doing? Wait a second, what are you doing? You're still editing this movie?"
I would personally have been like, "What is going on, and how is this going to work for me?" Yeah.
And for me also, that the sound is actually 18 frames ahead of the picture, right? Because of how it goes through the projector.
That's right.
And so I'm wondering, how is this going to sound? How is this going to sound? And so I had to wait for the next projection of the film just to watch it. But Olatunji's drum thing just was seamless. It just worked, like that. It just went right through.
Wow.
Now, I think it finally, for when you get it now, if you get the film now and the DVD, I think that scene has been restored.
Completely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I cut after the third projection of She's Gotta Have It. We were still editing,
But if you're cutting it out and it's in release, it's in more than one theater. So ultimately, you had to go back and have the.
No, it was only in one theater.
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, it was only in one theater, uptown on like 66 and Broadway, I think.
I love it.
It was only one theater.
But then it
played. Remember, the films used to be like that.
But it played around. Then so I guess that print that you cut then moved to another city. Is that what it was, or they made?
Well, then we had to go into DuArt, and we had to conform in DuArt. And then Spike really wanted to make sure that the sound was okay. I don't even think we remixed. I think he just listened to it and thought, "Yeah, okay," like that.
He was okay. He was okay with just literally cutting the optical track sound and the negative.
I think so. I don't remember going in and remixing and creating a new optical track for that reel. But we might have. I might be wrong about that. I mean, Spike, in terms of music, Spike is a stickler because his father was this terrific, great jazz musician. He grew up around great jazz, and so there's a couple of things that Spike is a real stickler for, and one of them is music,
Yes.
You know, I mean, a stickler. So I can almost not imagine that we didn't go and remix that. The second thing is spelling. His mother was a teacher,
Yeah.
you know, and for him, you know, if you misspell something, he's like, he is just so disgusted. You know, it's like, what is the matter with you? Why are we, you know, you can't spell, you know,
I
if
like
you
that.
can't spell, you can't look it up, you know,
I like that.
yeah.
That's a good,
So,
that's a
you
good
know,
discipline.
yep,
And I
yep,
agree with it. Wonderful.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So now here we are in the heart of the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I are film veterans from the film era and digital veterans from the digital era and movie theater goers. Um, I can't do an episode of my podcast without talking about the cinema, even though in New York City, of course, they've been closed since the lockdown. What do you think? Uh, 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 I get the different Vegas odds, but recently I've been getting a lot of statements feeling like the movie theater business is going to come back bigger than ever.
Wow, that would be great. That would be great. Um, I certainly would like that, you know, and quite frankly, what I would really like, and it isn't only because, you know, I'm a dinosaur, but I would like that some movies could come out the way, you know, you used to release movies 30, 40, 50 years ago, you know, or even longer, where you came in maybe in one cinema in New York and one cinema in LA, and maybe one cinema in Chicago or something, you know, and you let a movie build because certain movies have to build. There are certain things that are just blockbusters. There's no reason in the world to do that with a Star Wars movie,
Right.
or Harry Potter. I mean, just get that out in as many theaters as possible. But let's say a smaller movie. I just saw this terrific film called The White Tiger, right? That film is so great. And you know, it's the kind of film that for me, it's, you know, it should go into one cinema, two cinemas, you know, and build from there and build over months.
And they're also in theory, as I've had many distributors and people from the distribution business on, I think there ought to be a 90-day window. I mean, where it can't play anywhere else except the theater, and that seems to be something that has gone away.
Yeah, that sure has. That sure has.
Because you have
Unless you can just really completely control it. I mean, just have some patience because you know there was many movies that found an audience that way back in the day.
yeah,
You know? I mean, she's got to have it being one of them.
absolutely.
You know, a film that it just came out in one theater, and people saw that, and the word of mouth just was great. You don't have to do this crazy, you know, we got to be in 1,000 theaters, or you know, or we're nothing, you know. It just,
Exactly. All at once.
you know, so well, I mean, I hope you're right. I hope you're right that it's bigger than ever, you
I,
know.
I,
Maybe
I feel
people
there's-
are just, as I think you're implying, people are just going to be so hungry for it, you know. And there's nothing like, you know, like my movie Son of the South. I was able to show the film 3 times on a big screen before the pandemic hit.
gorgeous.
And one was in LA when we were finishing the mix. And one was in New York just to see, like how people would respond. And one was in France. I put in French subtitles to see how it would play in France. All three audiences, I mean, the response to it was so good and so powerful in a way that I think maybe you can get it by yourself, but if you're with an audience, you will really get it. The film plays in a different way, and and I think that there's a lot of great television made these days. And I
Yeah.
understand it's not completely called television anymore when it's on Netflix or Amazon,
Yeah.
but I still feel like it's television.
Yeah.
Um, but there's this other thing. There's this cinematic experience that I'm really a part of, and that I want to do. You know,
Yeah. Exactly.
not that I'm against working in television. I've not worked in it very much, and I've only edited pilots. I've never worked really on a series.
Right.
Um, so, but for me, I mean, that's the thing that gets me up in the morning is a movie that's going to end up on the big screen.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And apropos of that, now that your current project is out and about and playing, what's next for Barry Brown?
Well, as I say, Spike and I are doing something together right now that will take me, until at least to the middle of this year. And I have another film that I wrote called The Provider. It's a dark fantasy. We're going to shoot it in Malta, and nothing like not another kind of not any kind of a film that I've ever even worked on or edited. Certainly nothing that I've ever written before. And this just, it just came out of me in one gush, really, for 3 days. And I said, okay, let me go for it. And it's a very surprising story, and it is fantasy,
Nice.
and it is dark, you know.
Nice. So
And
this is
and Malta is a great place. I actually set it in Malta, and this is just this, and then Malta just has this spirit that I want, you know. It has a ancient history, a long history.
No, I've heard it's a remarkable place. I've never been, but
Yeah,
I've had friends that have told me about it.
yeah.
It sounds spectacular. So you've obviously spent time there.
A little bit, a little bit. I was there in July scouting. I was able to go just as it opened up,
Wow.
and then came back to the U.S. to work with Spike. You know,
And you guys have been in the editing room or still in production on what you're doing?
no, we're in the editing room.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
finishing
are.
up. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Barry,
Charlie,
yeah, yes. What a pleasure.
great to talk to you.
Good talking to you too. And I think we could talk for another 2 hours, but I think we did a pretty good job here.
Yeah, that's right. People will say, "Oh, but these two guys never shut up."
Thank you
Right?
so much, Barry. Thanks for doing
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Good to talk to you, man.
Good talking to you, man.
All right, later.
Bye.
Bye.